Hey guys, so this video I'm going to make about learned helplessness. Um, I just been thinking about different topics as they've come to mind, and this one I've seen a lot over the past several years, and then reflected back, remembering things about people that I had encountered or people that were in relationships with me in any sort of way. So there was a psychology experiment done years ago where they gave dogs unavoidable electric shocks, and I believe put them in cages. And then even after the the cages were open, the dogs wouldn't escape. They would just lay down and act helpless, like they had no control. Got severely depressed. And I'd seen this in many people that I encountered. And I think that I'd had moments in my life where I was like this. And the basis, is like when you feel like there's nothing you can do about an outcome, then you just give up. I think a lot of times fear of failure does this to people of, well, I tried and that didn't turn out good, so I'll just do nothing. And for the person, feeling that way, I think sometimes people don't realize that it's like you think that the fear, you avoid the feeling of feeling like a failure by not trying, not taking that risk. But then that just does the self-fulfilling prophecy of, well, you just guaranteed yourself 100% not the outcome that you wanted, not the success that you wanted by just giving up and not even trying. And and that just reinforces that negative feeling. It's like, I don't want to try because if I fail, it's going to make me feel like a failure. So instead, I'll just not do anything. But then I feel like a failure. It's the not trying that does it. I think it's an avoidant behavior. And then I think when it comes to being in relationships with people, whether it's family, friends, romantic, anything, I think some people don't realize that this then spills over to the other person. That if you don't try for something and you just stop, then you feel bad, then that other person thinks that they're not even worth trying for. That other person feels that failure too. The other person goes through that negative feeling too. I know I had this myself in relationships that I'd have where I'd think, so I'm not even worth trying for. That's what you're telling me. Because you don't want to take the risk of trying at anything because you feel like it'll fail. You do nothing. So then that means to me, I'm not even worth taking a risk for, not even worth trying for. And I think it does something to relationships to where it disconnects people along the way. That it separates a partnership. I had this in my job where, they would just say, there's nothing we can do about that. I'd be like, well, did you ask such and such? No, that'll create too much confrontation or whatever. So my needs aren't even worth trying for. I had clients that I would meet in these states of mind that would say, why? Why should I try to get help? Last time I did, I didn't get any. Or last time I went to that place, they rejected me and said they couldn't help. And I would try to be an optimist a lot of times of, well, maybe you just spoke to the wrong person. Maybe, things have changed. Let's go see. Like I would say, to my clients, like I will advocate. I'll do it all the way to, not getting fired, but, push it of, I don't know, being that Karen, that I'm like, you have a manager that we could talk to? And I would tell them, okay, well, if we heard no here, let's try some other avenue. Or, maybe you just had a worker who, I don't know, had a bad work ethic, had a bad day, maybe quit and they forgot to reassign you, something to where I try to bring a little bit of hope in, to try to teach people like you're not helpless. You don't have to lay down like you're in a cage when the cage door is open. There's no lock on it, and I think a lot of times it's, comes from childhood. I would feel like that, being grounded. Like I can't go anywhere. So then when I would get, emotionally dysregulated or down on myself or feel like I was being punished in any kind of relationship, I would just go to my room. And then I would feel like I was grounded, and then not venture out, not go places, not do things. Feeling like I got to earn my way back or somebody's got to let me out of the cage, and it really took me being by myself and teaching myself to do things on my own, which I've always been good at. It's just like in relationships, I would depend on somebody else, to, I guess, invite me places, take me places, do stuff with me. And then if they didn't feel like, oh, I'm so bad, and feel like I was in a cage. And it took me saying, oh no, I can take myself places. I know how to do that. I can go do things. I'm not helpless. So I think for anybody out there that's feeling that feeling, it's never too late to learn new things. I had one client that would tell me all the time, like, nobody ever taught me this stuff. I never even knew anything until you told me. Because they just thought, I can't learn that, or I don't know about that. But I tried to use the, yeah, me either. I'd pull out my phone like, yeah, the phone's confusing. We didn't have cell phones growing up. Sometimes we have to update and figure out stuff. And then I've used now, like doing this YouTube, where I said, if I stayed in that helpless feeling and helpless mindset in the beginning of this is just too much, I'm probably not going to succeed anyway. Nobody's going to want to listen to anything that I say. Why bother? It's too much. Then I wouldn't be where I was now. Even, like I said, I've made these videos even if nobody watches. But I mean, if one person watches, that's one more person that maybe something resonated with, that needed to hear, like, you're not helpless. You're not in a cage. You can do things. You can help yourself. There's nobody controlling you, telling you that you can't do things. So I hope this helps. And if anybody has any other information or ideas about how to help with that feeling, throw it in the comments or send me an email. My email's in there. But I hope this helps. I'll talk with you soon.